Hello, everyone, and welcome to Treating Bodies. My name is Yufei, and I'll be the host for today's panel. First off, I would like to begin by gratefully acknowledging that Science World is located on the traditional and unceded Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh village site of Sanok. So we'll start today with a quick introduction from our amazing group of mentors, followed by a hosted discussion. Just remember, if you have any questions for the mentors at any given time, please feel free to put those in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer those. So our technician today is Sarah, who will be monitoring the chat. If you have any technical issues at all, she would be happy to assist you. However, we do ask that you keep comments in the chat and questions section respectful and relevant to the topics being discussed. Now it's time to meet our mentors. So if they could get pulled up onto the screen here. Let's start by going around and doing a brief introduction before we jump into the questions. Mentors, if you could turn on your cameras and we'll bring you up on the screen. They're already there. So can we get to know each of you and let us know your name, job title, and the thing you love most about your career?
Hi guys, hopefully you can hear me. My name is Berta. I'm a registered nurse in the intensive care unit, also known as the ICU, at Vancouver General Hospital here in Vancouver. And sorry, one thing I'm interested in, I love hiking with my dog.
Thank you, Berta. I guess I'll go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Faiza, and I work as a scientist at Stem Cell Technologies. So I work mainly in the lab and actively do research. And in our team, we basically work together to develop products for life sciences research. I would say that one of my favorite things about working at Stem Cell is being able to mentor students. And what I like doing outside of work, probably a lot of outdoorsy activities like hiking and cycling and camping. Thank you.
Perfect. So my name is Jillian, and I'm a graduate student at Ryerson in Toronto. Currently, right now, I'm looking at testing a bunch of drugs from a bunch of different labs across the country and looking to see if they have anti-cancer or antiviral activity. My hobbies, I really like to climb outdoors.
Hey everyone, my name is Krista and I'm a postdoc at Simon Fraser University where I do research on cancer genomics, so studying the DNA of different types of cancer. And I also work in the lab as a cancer biologist. The thing I love most about my career is that I get to work with a really great team of people and we all have a shared goal of helping folks with cancer.
Thanks so much, mentors. And we have our first question in the comments from Anna. They said, "What's it like in ICU?" I believe this one is towards Berta.
That's a big question. I'll try to summarize it really briefly. It's, oh gosh, I don't even know where to start with that, to be honest. It's engaging. It's an engaging place to work. It can be very stressful at times. I have a lot of autonomy in what I do. I work in an incredibly collaborative environment with multidisciplinary professionals, so doctors, respiratory therapists, dietitians, physiotherapists, and pharmacists, sorry. But yeah, I don't know, really, it's a big question, but yeah, it's always engaging and requires a lot of thinking every day.
Yeah, thanks so much, Anna, for the question, and thanks, Berta, for responding. So while we wait for other questions to trickle in, I have a couple of my own that I would love to get answered. So for each of you, how did you guys get started in this career, and what's something that really inspired you, something that pushed you towards this path?
Are we going alphabetical? I guess I'll answer the question. Basically, yeah, in terms of a career path, I would say I definitely didn't know beforehand. I don't think I was planning ever to be in this specific role. I think I developed the interests over time. So I think one of the things I would say is that it just kind of evolved. Like in school, I was always like interested in, I guess, science projects, even like things like making those lava mountains. But I was really interested in geology, actually. And then I ended up doing more biology in high school. And then when I got to university, I had a chance to do hands-on research experience and get exposure to the lab environment. And I really liked it because it just felt like, you're working together on similar projects. Everyone kind of had interests outside of the lab. And it just felt like this kind of family kind of environment, which I really liked. You get to do and study what you enjoy, but at the same time, you have these nice social interactions also outside of work. So I really enjoyed that. And that's kind of what led me to come to stem cell, because I wanted to continue pursuing that role in research and still have the opportunity to kind of engage with people outside of the lab. And I think at a company like Stem Cell, where there's lots of opportunities for staff to kind of get involved in like sports and different teams, I think it's a nice way to stay connected with the community and still be able to do the things that you love in the lab. So that's kind of me, how I got involved. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, I can follow up. So mine is similar. I always knew I loved science and I loved the human body, and I always found it fascinating. But you don't really know the different careers you can go into until you start going through your postgraduate and you start meeting new people. And so I went to UBC, and UBC has a great co-op program within their science department. So I joined the co-op program at UBC, and I got an opportunity to work for 8 months at Stem Cell Technologies, the company she just talked about. And then I also got an opportunity to work at the Ovarian Cancer Research Institute right beside VGH. And that's kind of where I fell in love with cancer research and, working with in a collaborative environment, like Berta said, working with different clinicians, working with different scientists. And also during that experience, I got to work with mice models, which I just found completely fascinating. And that's kind of what's led to my interest in drug screening and cancer biology, which I'm now continuing into my postgraduate degree.
I'll jump in because like Jillian, I have a co-op degree at UBC, and that really exposed me to a whole bunch of different fields of work. So when I was in junior high, my grade 8 teacher read a section from The Hot Zone by Richard Preston, and that's about the Ebola virus. And I was just fascinated by something so small that could have such devastating consequences. And I think that kind of sparked my interest in really small things. So I thought I would work in virology or microbiology, so bacteria and viruses and fungi. But then I did a co-op in cancer research, and I loved it. And that's why I went to grad school, and that's why I work in cancer research. So, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but being fascinated with things that I can't see really kind of drives my curiosity even.
I'll just finish up by saying, like all of the other lovely ladies here, I also did actually a Bachelor of Science first in biology and thought about research, and then ended up going a different path towards nursing with the thought that I could use my background in sciences to help people. But the awesome thing about nursing is it's really open to further growth. So for example, right now I'm thinking about doing my master's in the next kind of couple of years. So just because you choose one thing doesn't always mean you'll stay with it or you won't go a different way. So just opening, those doors is a great way to sort of start off your career and then find what you're interested in as you go.
Yeah, that's great, everyone. And just a reminder to everyone watching that this is a great time to ask any burning questions you might have. These people are all experts in their field, and I'm sure they'd be more than happy to answer your questions. So if you do have any, just pop them in the comments. Yeah. And I guess in the meantime, I have a couple more that I would like to ask. What's the biggest challenge of your job so far? I understand that you guys all have pretty different jobs. So, yeah.
Do you want us to go in order? Is that easier? Or this? Okay, sounds good, guys.
Yeah.
Alphabetically. Okay, so biggest challenge of my job. So it kind of has changed with the pandemic, as you all might imagine, working in the ICU. We really are very much at the front line of what's going on right now across globally, really. But in a general, we'll speak to that because pandemics come once, hopefully in a lifetime, if that often. So the challenges of my job, just to give an idea, I don't know if I answered properly or well before about what I do in the ICU. I take care usually of one, maybe two incredibly sick people. Essentially, some of the sickest people in all of British Columbia end up coming to Vancouver General Hospital. So some of the challenges are in just the stress of dealing with people that are at a very challenging time in their life and dealing with family who are also at a challenging time in their life. So basically, keeping stress under control to like run machines and monitor and critically think, while also physically doing work, like caring for the human body per se. You have to sort of have both physical hands-on skills as well as like cognitive and emotional skill as well. So it's quite challenging that way at times to do all of those things sometimes at once. Yeah, go ahead if you want me to.
Yeah, thanks, Berta. My work environment is very different than Berta's, obviously, because I work in a lab. And I think during COVID, one of the things that was challenging is that because my role is pretty lab-based and we couldn't go into the lab to do our research for a period of time until things kind of started opening up slowly. And in terms of challenges, I think that they are often, I would say, more project-based. So depending on the type of project that we're working on, there's been, during this pandemic, supply chain issues, and sometimes we have to redirect our focus based on the needs of our research climate. So for example, certain areas of research became more prioritized, and we had some structuring around that to focus on those projects and support those types of projects, which also means that sometimes projects that you might really enjoy or that you were starting to explore get put on hold temporarily to focus on those other big ideas. And it can be challenging in the sense that maybe you might have an interest in that area, but you might have to put that on pause temporarily to kind of focus more on another need. And so I think during COVID, I would say one of the things that was a bit harder is that the lab can sometimes be kind of isolating. And so you don't really see very many people. And I would say on the plus side, because we started going in, you did start running into your colleagues, and then you could still stop in the hallways and kind of talk to people. And I think that's what I enjoy about being in the lab. It's just kind of those interactions and those spontaneous conversations. And I think that despite that feeling, sometimes when you have a project where you're kind of just working on your own, you still are part of this bigger picture because we all work in a team and we all work together towards a common goal. And I think that keeping that in mind kind of keeps me motivated. So I would say, yeah, I hope that answers your question. Thanks.
Yeah, I think for me personally, it's not necessarily something that I struggle with right now, but kind of just in the general field of cancer research and translational research, looking at that research between laboratories moving into more clinical environments. And as a group, we were talking about this earlier, just how long it usually takes drugs to get approved for the market. And it's difficult working within cancer because just because something works in the laboratory doesn't mean it's necessarily going to translate into a good treatment for people. You could be working on something in the lab, you could be testing a drug and it's working great. If I'm working with cells, then I go to the mice model and maybe it's working there. But then when you start with clinical trials and you realize, oh, people are not responding to it. So it's just always evolving to what's coming and always having in mind the goal you're working towards. Anytime you're in cancer research, it's, you're trying to provide better treatments. You're trying to provide better options for individuals that maybe they're not responding well to a drug, or et cetera. So it's always keeping it, keeping the goal in mind, but accepting that challenges are going to come along the way, and it's how you adapt to them and how, as a group with your team, you can move forward with your project. But I'm sure, Krista can also follow up with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really big challenge, and one of the challenges I find personally is dealing with the number of misconceptions that people around me have about cancer. So just having to have those conversations on a regular basis about does coffee cause cancer, or I heard about this study that aspartame caused cancer in rats, and helping people understand the limitations of research and why, if you're going to drink 100 cans of diet pop every day for an extended period of time, you would expect that your health suffers as a result. But the occasional, dose of aspartame is not just going to give you cancer. But in addition, I think one of the biggest challenges as a scientist has been moving from wet lab work, so working at the lab bench and manipulating liquids and doing physical experiments with cells or mice or other models of cancer. In the last 3 years, my current job, I've picked up a lot of bioinformatics skills, and that's using coding to answer biological questions. So we work with these huge data sets, like genomes from maybe 1,500 different individuals with cancer. And it takes a lot of different skills than I was used to work through that. But working in a really collaborative, supportive group has made it possible for me to learn those skills and ask a lot of questions. And it's been a really great place to learn. So I think that you can get over a whole lot of challenges if you work with the right kind of people who support you as a person.
Oh, that's so great to hear. Yeah, even with these challenges right now, especially with COVID in most of the workplaces, it's great to hear that STEM is still going on and you guys are still making breakthroughs in research. Yeah, it's awesome. And since we're at our, I think, maybe 3-minute warning now, last question here. So what is something cool about your job that most people don't know? Like something that you think is just super fascinating?
It's kind of gross, but it's not too gross, because I'm trying to think of something on the spot. But it is pretty cool. Basically, what we can do to the human body to help people is absolutely incredible. There's this one technology we use at VGH. It's not used at many hospitals. The doctors actually went all the way to Oxford, England to learn about this technology. It's called the brain bolt. So it basically is what you think it is. It's a bolt inserted into the brain, and it actually measures moment by moment brain oxygenation. So how much oxygen is at that part in the brain, as well as moment by moment intracranial pressure. And it's my job to monitor those numbers and decipher what they mean and act and intervene if things are not going well. So it's just kind of cool, in my opinion. And no, it's not painful, really. It's not that big, but a little bit Frankenstein-y.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. I would say that at my workplace, one of the really cool things is because I work in R&D, we have kind of two branches of R&D, which is media development, which is involved with the media for studying different tissues. And one thing that we do in that area is being able to study like mini organs in a dish. And it's really, really cool because you can highlight certain structures that you would see perhaps in the human body, and you can look at it under a microscope and you can image them, which means you can visualize them on a screen. And I think that's really, really cool because you can't always do that sometimes with animal models. And it's neat that you can study those elements in a dish.
I think something I find so fascinating, especially with cancer, it's not the greatest, but the human body has an incredible way to adapt and evolve. So in cancer, it's not great because sometimes our bodies become resistant to the treatment we're trying to give it, but it is quite fascinating how resilient our cells are and us as people are to stuff.
I think one of the coolest things is thinking about how much DNA we have in our bodies and how often it needs to be copied. And it has to be copied pretty much perfectly, because if there's a mistake in your DNA, then your cells go haywire. It could result in cancer, or it could be something else. And just as an example, if you were to type it out at like 60 words per minute, working a full-time job, it would take you decades. But our bodies do this in just a couple of hours. And I think it's just amazing to think about how well our bodies have all these little bits of machinery. They have enzymes and proofreading and everything to make sure that we get all of those copies exactly the way they're supposed to be.
Thanks so much, everyone, for sharing. And it looks like we are just about at time here. Thanks so much for joining us today, mentees, and a huge thanks to our wonderful mentors for sharing their time and experience with us. And everyone watching the live stream, if you could return to the main stream in our lobby for the next activity, that'd be awesome. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks.